with about 200,000 or 300,000 of us. And what do you say? Looking again into the eyes of the Christophobic, anti-life, anti-family, anti-God world, he said, "We believe that every child, born and unborn, is a gift from Almighty God."
God help us, whatever happened to that? Tonight from the Remnant Underground, your questions on the most polarizing election in U.S. history.
Father Ripperger says we have an obligation to vote the lesser of two evils. Are you saying that we're obligated not to vote? Do you think the Trump-Harris debate was rigged? Why should I care? What recourse is left to us if the Republican platform is not changed back? But I don't understand why we can't just vote for him and then continue to be pro-life in our hearts. Hey, don't you get it? We're not voting for a pope.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Michael Matt. This is the Remnant Underground. As promised tonight, I will be taking your questions on a variety of things, but I want to just to offer a quick word of thanks to our sponsor, Charity Mobile, for sticking with us. How about this, Walter? I mean, all of a sudden, it's starting to take a little bit of courage for sponsors to stay with us when there are a lot of pro-life folks out there who are really kind of calling for us to be punished, if you will, for questioning the Trump compromise on abortion and gay marriage. We're going to get into all that, but I wanted to thank Charity Mobile for sticking with us, and I'm very, very proud to stand with Charity Mobile, America's pro-life phone company. And with 30 years in business for helping the unborn, Charity Mobile is offering this audience, our audience, a free phone with free activation plus free shipping, and part of your payment each month goes to the pro-life charity of your choice, including the Remnant Foundation, if you so choose. So everyone wins when you go to CharityMobile.com/RTV and use the code RTV at checkout. That's CharityMobile.com. So, to your questions. I don't know how many are out there. Tessa's standing in the wings over here. She's got the questions. I don't know how many of you sent questions that are related directly to the Trump thing. I'm assuming after that disastrous debate this week that most are going to be about the Trump situation. But if we don't get to all of your questions on that question, I would encourage you to head over to remnantnewspaper.com, where we continue to present both sides of this thing, this Trump dilemma. You know, I think that's what we're really obligated to do before our audience. Present both sides, not in the sense of, there is no truth in this matter, but because there's so much gray area to do the best we can to present all the arguments based on Catholic principle, because this is a true dilemma that we now face. You know, the great Catholic philosopher Edward Feser just pointed out in an excellent piece that he wrote called "Trump Has Put Social Conservatives in a Dilemma." It's a fantastic article. We'll link to it down here. I want you to check it out. And he does the same thing, by the way, trying to present both sides of this thing, this really, really difficult issue. It is indeed a dilemma, whether some among us want to admit that or not. A guy like Edward Feser is a Catholic philosopher. He's been given more thought to this than probably any of us, and he calls it a dilemma. What does that mean? Not that he's not giving it enough thought, not that he hasn't thought of the ramifications of a Harris-Walz victory, not that he doesn't think that Donald Trump is better than those two clowns. He's thought through all of this and still presents it as a very serious conscience issue, a moral dilemma, So again, some of you don't see it that way. That's fine. I understand you're arguing the merits of voting lesser of two evils, which, as I explained last week, I think is being bandied about way too much right now. We're going to find out why I think that, in my opinion. But some of you don't see it as I do. And I completely understand. And I'm not at all saying you're a moral reprobate or you're reckless or irresponsible if you go, I don't know, man. I got to vote for Trump. I got a house full of little kids. I'm scared. I'm going to vote for Trump. This is, I totally get that. I've got friends. I've got family. I even have remnant columnists who agree with you. So let's keep that in mind as we kind of forge ahead here. I know this debate, eventually we're going to have to kind of calm things down and move on to the next thing, but it's really snowballing right now, largely because people are legitimately and understandably afraid of what's going to happen, okay? So we all agree, for example, let's get rid of the sort of the name calling or the sarcastic little smarmy shots. You think Kamala Harris is better. You want Kamala Harris. You hate Trump. You want Walz Harris. Let's stop. Let's stop with that. You know that's not true. You know that's not, especially not for me. You know that's not true. I've never been a never Trumper. So you got to start asking the questions. Why are these people who've been supporting him for a long time, why are they suddenly asking very serious questions, right? Kamala Harris is a total disaster. We all know that. We also all know exactly what is at stake here. So it doesn't have to be pointed out. Don't you understand what's going to happen to the border? Don't you understand what's going to happen to us? Don't you understand what's going to happen to this country? Yeah, we sure do. So let's just cut to the chase. Under a Harris-Walz administration, a show like ours and a lot of other shows out there on the internet right now could very well be shut down. Absolutely. I personally have been on this show has been on the FBI watch list for years. I've been on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate map since 2007. So I went through a lot of this fear, about what they're trying to do, intimidation, and trying to get you on this on their little list and their hate. We went through a long time ago. We went through it back in 2007. So I'm giving you the benefit of my experience. We've been dealing with this for a very, very long time. We know what they're capable of. We understand the very real threat that's out there, but we still have to have this discussion. So I know exactly what is at stake here, believe me, which is why dilemma is the word, to use Edward Feser's word. That's what it is. We're talking about a very real moral dilemma, what to do. And we all understand that, whether we agree with one another or not. We all understand that dilemma, so we need to keep the thing together, keep this together. Because no matter what happens in November, we are going to need each other in the years ahead. We need to keep the movement together, the folks together, the clans together. So maybe some of you, right now then, when you hear me say this, oh, wait a minute, he does get it. He does understand what's going to happen to this country if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get it. Yeah. So why is Michael Matt then taking this stand right now when he of all people stands to lose so much? If Trump wins, if Trump loses in November, people like Remnant TV, Michael Matt have a lot to lose, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom, all this. We're going to lose it under these guys, right? That's a good question. And I would say very briefly, you're right, because this was me just 4 years ago.
When for the first time in the history of this country, a sitting president of the United States walked out onto that mall and he stood with about 200,000 or 300,000 of us. And what did he say? Looking again into the eyes of the Christophobic, anti-life, anti-family, anti-God world, he said, "We believe that every child, born and unborn, is a gift from Almighty God. This is possibly the most counter-revolutionary thing ever said in the past 50 years in this country." And they never forgave him for that either.
Why is this happening? It is happening. There's a direct parallel to what's happening in the church, the Catholic Church, and what's happening right now in the Republican Party and conservative politics in America. And that's what I'm talking about. And the reason that we're being surveilled by the FBI, for example, is because the Vatican sold us out. Okay? The Vatican, as you all know, is run by globalists. Pope Francis is a mega globalist. That's all he cares about is globalists and the Great Reset and the whole New World Order experiment, right? So the Vatican is attempting to isolate their opposition, which is all those who have held on to the old faith, to conservatism in the church, if you will. I don't like the word, but you know what I mean. Traditionalists. They're trying to isolate the traditionalists, the opposition, by positing and by suggesting and kind of floating it out there that only extremist fringe groups are still holding on to the old Christian order, or to the old conservatism, if you will, if I want to use a political term. So consequently, we are losing, as Catholics right now, we are losing our protection, the protection of our own church. We can't stand behind our own church anymore, and the corrupt FBI knows it. They get to do whatever they want, because at the moment, Jim Jordan and Josh Hawley do more to protect Catholics than the American bishops do, for example. So weakened has the church become, okay? So we understand what happens with compromise. We understand even the physical threat, the fear that comes with losing your church, losing your protection, the institutions of protection of the common good, right? Suddenly, we as Catholics have no place to hide, no grounds for conscientious objection. Or as we all saw during COVID, no grounds even for religious exemption from vaccination, experimental vaccination, right? Pope Francis made sure of that. You see how it works? And what am I talking about? What am I getting at? Well, Mr. Pro-lifer, you're next. Well, Mrs. Pro-traditional marriage, you're next in America. It's coming for you now. And this is the concern. So pay attention here. This is what we are talking about. Nobody is saying we should vote, that it's not going to be worse under Kamala, but what we're saying, something else is at work, something much bigger. And this forms that dilemma, again, that Fezzer's talking about. Because by cutting Bible-based social conservatism out of the Republican platform, something similar is happening to conservatives in this country, or is about to happen, as has happened to traditional Catholics who are now being investigated by the FBI. Something similar. And what is that? Team Trump and the Republican Party are isolating social conservatives. We're right on the cusp. We're right on the beginning of this. It's already happening to some extent. It's going to happen in steroids very soon. And it's not going to happen just for 4 years under the Harris administration. See, this is what I mean. We got to think down the road, way beyond November. And a lot of you are confused by that. Man, don't you know it's coming up in November? If we lose to Harris, it's all over. Okay, if we lose to Harris, yeah, we're gonna have a hellish 4 years, no doubt about that. On the other hand, we already lived through Biden. We already lived through Barack Obama, who's the sort of the chief cook and bottle washer of all of this. We lived through the Clintons, right? So probably we're going to be okay under a Harris thing. Not okay, but we're going to make it under a Harris administration so long as we hold together the serious, principled, God-centered, Christocentric opposition. You see? We're not talking about just 4 years. We're talking about permanently if we lose that. Permanently we lose. We lose the war. That's what we're concerned about. So as the Republican Party now abandons Bible-based positions on abortion and homosexual marriage, for example, you, my friend, and I, and our children, and our friends, and our family will become increasingly isolated, increasingly fringe, right? Increasingly radical, of course, without any sort of cover from a legitimate party, mainstream party that's known for being conservative, socially conservative on things like abortion and gay marriage, right? And if you hang on, first you're going to be labeled an extremist, already happening. And if you persist, you will be categorized as a domestic terrorist threat. That's what we're concerned about with this stripping of the Republican Party of the social conservatism, the Bible-based issues over which we as Christians are called to die before we sell out on. It's a big problem for us. We will have no political party platform behind which to hide very soon if something doesn't happen to stop this. So this brings up the question. There's a lot of chit-chat about the lesser and greater of two evils. I don't think most people understand what that truly means. Hopefully we'll get to that tonight. But instead of asking what's the lesser of two evils, let's ask what's the greater of two evils? What's the greater of two evils? What's the bigger concern here for all of us? And again, I'm trying to give you the concern that I have and a lot of people have, right? We're going to get to whether or not you can vote for Donald Trump and whether or not it's morally obligatory not to or to vote for Trump. But what's the greater evil? What we're arguing is that voting for the permanent abolition of a socially conservative force, a socially conservative party in this country, one that respects the law of God and the law of nature, voting to abolish that could be, no, in my opinion, friends, it is the greater evil. That's the concern. You think we can hang on to that once we get rid of all this stuff about abortion and gay marriage and start accepting IVF and contraception and divorce and everything else? You think we're ever going to be able to put that genie back in the bottle? Of course not. That's the slope that we're on right now. That's where this ends up. And as we pointed out last time, Barack Obama and Teddy Kennedy at one point were very much against abortion, supposedly. Very much against gay marriage, some of these issues. And they completely, once they were on that slippery slope, turned into a slide, right, into hell. And that's the concern, that's where we're going on in order to prevent something bad from happening to us in November. And again, traditional Catholics have already gone through this. At Vatican II, we watched as the Catholic Church watered down her dogma and her liturgy especially to make it palatable and acceptable to whom? To Protestants. That was the whole point. That's how they undid the Catholic Church. That's how they trashed the Catholic Church. That's how they equalized, leveled the playing field. Okay, so similarly, right now, Team Trump, the GOP, the Republican Party, they're watering down social conservatism in the same way right now to make it palatable and acceptable to Democrats, which is why guys like Bill Maher are kind of like, yeah, well, you shouldn't be so mean to Robert Kennedy, heck of a guy. Somebody like Elon Musk says, yeah, man, I totally endorse Donald Trump now. When that starts happening, you have to be concerned. Why is what passes for conservatism now becoming very, very acceptable to Democrats of yesterday? You see? That's easy. You see the Republicans going after partial birth abortion all the time now. Well, whatever happened to abortion? Well, the same thing that happened to contraception. They used to be against contraception. That long time ago abandoned that. Then they were against abortion. Long time ago abandoned that. Then they were against abortion only in the later months, right? Now it's partial birth abortion. We saw that just the other night on the debate floor. Wouldn't it have been great to have Donald Trump show the same fervor for the lives of babies as he did for the lives of cats in Ohio? You got to admit, that's what happened. Well, we'll toss it to the states, kind of a Pontius Pilate move, But you guys can just decide on that one, because that's not, we got real issues here, like the border, not the lives of babies. The states can handle that. You see what's happened? So they will still talk about partial birth abortion, like even exaggerating it to say they're actually babies are being born, and then they kill them outright, and the little ABC bobblehead airhead was able to say there's no state where that's legal. Point goes to her. You see? Because they're trying so hard to exaggerate the abortion thing, the parts of abortion that they're opposed to, that they begin to sound a little silly. That's what's happening right now. And then IVF, that's fine. Abortion pills, that's fine, says J.D. Vance, says Donald Trump. Abortion pills are fine. 63%, according to Guttmacher, 63% of abortions right now are as a result of that horrific pill that the Republicans, including Trump and Vance, are now saying, yeah, it's a medication that should be handed out. We support that.
The federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it.
So people say, well, yeah, it's just posturing, they got to get elected, Friends, that's just not the way it works. If you say that, you don't understand you don't understand politics. You don't understand, for example, what a political party's platform is even. The platform is the thing that defines the politician's core beliefs. That's what he stands on. That's why it's called a platform, right? You got planks in there that build the platform. This is what supports him. It's what he's running on, right? What the politicians stand for is the platform. And we need to stand up, and pay attention now when the Republicans change their platform dramatically and remove language such as this, that the unborn child has a fundamental individual right to life which cannot be infringed. They removed it. That's not just not paying attention to the abortion thing because it's politically controversial. You've changed what you believe about life. And you've taken it out of your platform. We no longer believe that. They removed it. And then what are they doing instead? They formalize support for IVF, in vitro fertilization, right? Again, in their platform, which destroys more human embryos every year than abortion does.
The Supreme Court made a decision saying that the American people should have access to that medication. Donald Trump has supported that opinion. I support that opinion.
Just to be clear, you support mifepristone being accessible?
Yes, Kristen, I do.
And when we're talking about lesser of two evils still, Well, is this evil lesser enough to justify voting for abortion like this? And by the way, in case you're saying he's just faking it, well, that's becoming a stretch. That is becoming a real stretch. Oh, he's just faking it in order to get elected. It's just virtue. It's just vice signaling to get in. Don't be an idiot, man. Right? Well, not according to Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump. Because according to him, what we're seeing now in the Republican platform, the way it's been stripped down of all references to Christian moral theology, according to Eric Trump, this is right where dear old dad has always been.
The Republican platform, interestingly, has moved to the center on a couple of key issues. For the first time in 40 years, the Republican platform does not call for a federal abortion ban. It no longer defines marriage as between one man and one woman, but it doesn't. So is this a sign that your father is moving to the center in some ways or on some issues?
Yes, I think he's always been there on those issues, to tell you the truth. And I think that's reflective of who my father is and what he believes in. And I think that's reflective of my wife, Laura, who runs the RNC, and clearly what she believes in. And I'm proud of the party. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, this country has real holes in the roof, and you've got to fix those holes, and you've got to stop worrying about the little, spot on the wall in the basement.
And if that's not bad enough, friends, the GOP platform also no longer supports traditional marriage. As I explained to you last week, as of 2016, they were still defending marriage as one man. They had a definition in the platform, marriage between one man and one woman. So people say, how could you support Trump in 2016? Because all that was in there still. That's what they said they believed in. So for me as a practicing Catholic, as a Bible, as a Christian, it was easy to support them. Okay, all of this stuff is still in the platform. They're giving lip service to pro-life. Of course we can see where this goes, no problem. But all of that has changed now. They even removed reference to any support for traditional marriage, which, I'm sorry, but this is not surprising. After Donald Trump actually trotted his Catholic wife out to tell the world what Donald Trump actually thinks on the question of gay marriage.
As the leader of the Republican Party and President of the United States, Donald has been clear that gays and lesbians will be treated as he has always treated them, equally. Donald is the first president to enter the White House supporting gay marriage.
Now, friends, this hurts, okay? I get it. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, well, Kamala Harris is a demon. I agree. We're not just talking about dead babies now and abortion. We're not just talking about Kamala. We're not just talking about Donald Trump. We are talking about us. What is going to happen to us in our hearts and in our Catholic souls, our Christian minds, if we continue to go along with this? It's getting worse and worse and worse. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Like, what happens if all of a sudden one day we don't have anybody to vote for? You scary? Yeah, that's scary. That's terrifying. We're gonna get to that in a moment. But I want you to understand that I get it. This is the nature of the revolution. Most of the responsibility lies at the feet, in my opinion, of the Catholic Church, of the Vatican, of guys like Francis. Yes, of course.
Ma il mio Dio è più importante del tuo.
But my God is more important than your God.
È vero quello?
Is that true?
C'è un solo Dio lì. E noi sono idiomi, cammino, lingue per arrivare a Dio.
There's only one God, and each of us is a language, so to speak, in order to arrive at God.
Qualcuno è Sikh, qualcuno musulmano, qualcuno hindi, qualcuno cristiano, ma sono diversi cammini.
There are different paths.
They're the ones that are allowing all of this to go on. And the politicians are just like, well, okay, it was all fake and gay, so we can do whatever we want. Who cares about the Catholic Church? Yes, we've been saying that for 50 years, that it's going to end up here without a strong Catholic Church. So we get it, and we know who's to blame. But that does not excuse us doing things that would violate our conscience. So we become essentially them. How many times have I talked about that on the show? I've ended shows this way. Don't ever become them. Because then there's no way back. Then it's all over. Then the 12 just or the 10 just men of Sodom are gone. And there's no reason in the world why we can expect God to save us. So what we're looking at right now in politics in America, and this is the concern, this is why, again, Fezer uses the word dilemma. What we are looking at is a conscience issue. We're looking at formal rejection of God's law in the official political platform of the last surviving conservative party, political party in this country. That is what we are looking at. A rejection of the moral law of God, a rejection of the natural law as well. Now, we're not just talking about demon Democrats rejecting God and his law. No. So don't try to use that little easy escape hatch. Democrats are worse. Yes, they are. And that's all to be expected from them. They sold their souls to the devil decades ago. We expect nothing from them but lies, right? The bigger problem is they no longer, if this continues, they will no longer have any serious opposition. You know, the good guys are going to sell out. There won't be the lesser of two evils. It's just going to be all evil, right? That's what we're concerned. What we are actually concerned about then, friends, not the next few months. Of course, that's concerning. But we're talking about the long haul. We're talking about the war. What we're concerned about here is apostasy. A lot of people out there on the internet on our side want to talk about Thomas Aquinas as though they've studied him when they haven't, right? But they want to talk about Thomas Aquinas. You know what Thomas Aquinas says? You know what he holds as the greatest of all evils? You want to talk about the greatest evil? It's apostasy. It's the sin of apostasy, according to him. And that's where our concern is. What if we suddenly, inadvertently, just sort of compromise ourselves into a de facto apostasy here? You see the problem? If Trump wins on this fatal compromise and we go along with it, the grassroots move, this is where it gets so terrifying, because we all lived through 2016. It was wonderful. It's where the people that believe in something bigger than themselves got together and changed history for a time, right? If Trump wins on this fatal compromise, the thing that he promised that he would support, the lives of babies, God, Christ, family, right? If he compromises on all of that, the grassroots movement of God, life, and family will be shattered and annihilated in this country. There won't be one of those movements left. There won't be the ability anymore to ever have a 2016 repeat. It'll never happen again. Christian Americans will have lost whatever political representation they had, and it was slipping away already. It's going to be gone if we go along with this without a protest. If we go along with this, in my opinion, at all. We simply cannot let this happen. I don't care how much we like Donald Trump and Make America Great Again and the red hats and all the stuff that happened, right? It's fantastic. We cannot let this happen. And that's why, friends, I'm telling you, everybody should be on the same page here. I'm going to, hopefully, we'll be asked in the questions that are coming up now. Am I telling you you can't vote? Of course not. What I'm telling you is that we've got 2 months to try to make a difference here. 2 months. 2 months out still. We need to be shouting at the Trump team. We need to be shouting at the Republican Party to stop this bargain with the devil right now. Morally, it's wrong. Politically, it's stupid because it's suicidal and it will not work. We just saw that the other night at that debate. In moving away from all of this, what got him there in the first place, remember, we gave him the victory. He said he would stay with us, but we're the ones that gave him the ideas on what's a winning solution. God, country, family, life, right? And moving away from all that, the stuff that gave him the victory in 2016, he begins to look weak, doesn't he? And unable to even outsmart a pair of earrings on that idiot airhead, Cammie Harris, or the ABC talking heads. Can't even outsmart them? Really? That's the excuse we're going to use now? Well, yeah, they tricked him. He's Donald Trump. If he's on the side of God and the angels and the righteous ones, he should have destroyed those people. And the amount of times that they were interrupting him and making him look foolish, if it had been me, I would have said, one more time, David Muir, and I'm off this stage. I'm gone. I really think he should have tried that. Instead, he just sits there because his core beliefs are failing. He's decided to compromise the core beliefs of this movement. And so he looks weak. He's trying to be like them, be palatable with them. And it doesn't work. And quite frankly, I am tired of hearing that Trump's monumental failures, like the other night was, that those are our fault. The failure at the election in 2020 was our fault for some reason. The midterms 2022, that's the pro-lifers' fault. Getting kind of tired of that. Donald Trump lost that because of his compromise.
Gavi operates with great transparency, and Boris Johnson is somebody with tremendous respect for you and everything you do. He called, he said, "Do you think you could do something maybe around the Oval Office or right by the Oval Office?" I said, "Why not? It happens to be right behind me." As the coronavirus has shown, there are no borders. It doesn't discriminate. It's mean, it's nasty, but we're going to all take care of it together. It's great to be partnering with you. We will work hard. We will work strong. Send my regards to Boris, and good luck. Let's get the answer.
And he will lose this next election if he keeps going down this road, in my opinion. And that's just how I see it. I think there is something that can be done about it, which is why tonight I want to take your questions to see if what I'm saying holds up, and to see if maybe I'm missing something. In any case, hopefully to come out the other side of tonight's show like absolutely convinced that we all are together on the same page as pro-lifers, as Christians, demanding that Team Trump stop this insanity while there's still time. So, to your questions. We'll start with, I guess, Tess, you've got the questions. This is Tess Mullins, producer Tess Mullins over here. Walter filming this whole thing. There's General Manager Walter Matt over here. Walter, are we ready to roll on this?
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay. Tess, why don't you I've gone on too long. I can see I babbled a bit too long, so why don't you just take it away? What do you got?
All right, so the most frequently asked question is probably, are you saying that we're obligated not to vote and that we absolutely can't?
A couple things I think we need to put a moratorium on. One is using the word must. I'm not saying you must not vote for Trump, and I would really appreciate if you would return the favor by not trying to tell me I must vote for him, because I have serious conscience issues based on lifelong Catholicism and a pretty solid Catholic training in Catholic schools for why I'm concerned, right? It's not because I haven't thought it through. So please don't tell me that I must vote for him, and I'll make you a deal. I won't tell you that you can't, or you must not vote for him. This is the whole point of these discussions. I think that's the one thing we could say, is that if we decide that we are going to vote for Donald Trump, we have an obligation, according to moral theology, Christian moral theology, to do so in protest if he does not drop this compromise. So that's the only thing I would say. If you're going to vote for him, rah, 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 USA, USA, Trump, 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 is not the way to do it. If you're going to vote for him, I think we have an obligation for the sake of our children, right? And for anybody that's looking, to stand up and say, no, we are not going along with this pro-abort compromise. We are voting not for those. We're voting for protection of the border, protection of our cities, law and orders in our cities, but we are doing so under protest.
All right, next question is, do you think the Trump-Harris debate was rigged?
I guess I'd probably prefer not to get into that, other than to say, if there was any chance that thing was rigged, again, I kind of think that's on Donald Trump. What, they didn't have somebody who could have checked her earrings beforehand, or even during? I'm no expert on that, so I really don't know, but we always seem to resort then back to these conspiracy theories. Last time Trump said the thing was stolen in 2020, and so everybody screamed cheating, and a bunch of people went to prison because he said that, there was some possibility of cheating going on. So I would say there's a moral principle that we can follow on this that probably would help. And that is, no moral theologian would ever tell you that you have to vote for an election that's fixed, that's rigged. There's no obligation whatsoever. If you know it's a fake deal going on, there's going to be a ton of cheating, you don't have to vote for it. You don't have to play along with that kind of nonsense. So I would say I don't think it's a strong argument for us to make that the debate was fixed, because if Donald Trump can't even fix that, if he can't even make sure that's not rigged, I think he undermines his entire argument for why we need to vote for him, and why they somehow have managed to assure us that the same thing that happened in 2020, which they had said at one point said was cheating, is not going to happen again. If they can't even keep a debate free of cheating, why in the world would they be able to keep a national election free from cheating? And if they can't assure us that they're going to do that, I'm under no moral obligation to vote for them. So I think that's probably a little bit of a weak argument. Even if she was getting the questions, I don't think Trump performed well at all. Like I said, I wish he showed as much compassion for the aborted babies in this country as he did for cats and dogs in Ohio. I really do. He really got fired up when he was accused of lying about IVF, and he insisted to her that she's lying. I absolutely support IVF. I think he lost, to me anyway, he lost on his own merits much more than he did with the two clowns that were tag teaming him. ABC should be ashamed of itself, obviously. But I think that if that's the case, why did he go into that venue to begin with? Everybody knew that probably could or would happen. It happened. So I think that dismissing the whole thing based on the cheating of the other guys just is bad form at this point.
Makes sense. So Terry Gallo Blackadder asks, I voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, fast forward to 2024, and I'm disturbed by his cavalier stand on basic moral values. I'm praying for discernment, but there's no pro-life third-party candidate in Maine. What should I do?
Well, I think I'm glad he brought that question up, because it reminds me, if you are in a blue state where there's no chance that Trump is going to win, he's not even campaigning in those states, obviously vote for a third party. I think that's really the only answer. And that throws a whole other alternative. Those who say you must vote for Trump, you have no option, you must. No, just stop with the must. There are many people who are living in California or states like that where it's obvious. Minnesota, he's not even campaigning here. He's not going to even come close to Minnesota. If you have a third party option, you want to vote for it. If you don't, well, I think that's where you come to the idea that maybe we're gonna have to be ready to accept some really bad consequences for the way the world's gone. Our country has been exporting abortion, population control, pornography, rotten music, rotten movies, rotten color revolutions and regime changes and wars. What's that? Human trafficking, yeah. So many things now are going on that we're also responsible for. Maybe this is the moment to say we no longer deserve the protection of God, which is, again, kind of my whole introduction tonight, is trying to remain worthy of the protection for Almighty God against what we actually richly deserve as a nation. So it could be that now we're on the verge of coming to a very dark time, and we need to brace for this and talk about this rather than just say, well, we'll just apostatize to avoid it. I got a very nice letter from a woman the other day up in Canada. She said, I appreciate your latest video. Welcome to our world. It's basically where we Canadians have been for a long time. We have no representation that we can vote for. We have no Christian, we have no pro-life, pro-family candidates anymore to vote for. So people have been there before. They've been there in France for a long time. Nobody talks about abortion or pro-lifism in France. So, the chickens are coming home to roost. And again, that's why it's so important that we stay solid to our principles and don't let this movement blow apart just so that Trump can get in November, because we won't have access then to a restoration down the line. So yeah, if you live in a state where there is no third party, write somebody else in. That's about all we can do right now. And then stay engaged in this idea of protesting, which you can really do if you're in a blue state, no third party. Lead the charge wherever you're going in protesting what the Republican Party is doing, what the GOP is doing right now, which is essentially stabbing pro-life America in the back, right? So lead the charge. Tell everybody you know that you can't vote. And it breaks your heart because you know how terrifying it is. And you'd much rather see somebody like Trump get in rather than Tammy. But now they've put you in a position where, as a good Christian, you can't in conscience vote for them either. And it's not your fault. So I would say spread that word. And that's doing a lot. And then, of course, pray. Oh, my gosh. Every night, get down on your knees, pray the rosary. Because holy cow, this does not seem like something that's going to end well. So the best thing we can do is pray that when the dust settles, at least we've kept our faith and kept our souls. And that's really more important than anything else. Although right now, it seems really scary to face the political realities.
All right. Stuffick from Twitter says, why should I care? Donald Trump and Kamala Harris do different things, but both lead us further down the road to perdition. Liberals blaze the path, then conservatives pave it. I no longer care for either, and again, why should I care? Wow. Well, I think a lot of us are basically there, are getting real close to being there now. We're tired of being betrayed. We're tired of the games that are being played. So yeah, it's a tough question, but it's a tough thing to face. You don't want to take a cavalier attitude, but yeah. Well, I think this question what you said leads into this question pretty well.
Okay.
So Christine says, you helped clarify this issue for me and maybe saved my soul in the process. My question is this: what recourse is left to us if the Republican platform is not changed back before the election to its previous defense of the rights of God and Christian Americans?
So we need to kind of man up, and the main thing is stay together. So we have this option afterwards. Maybe some of you will vote for You'll decide in conscience with a discussion with your priest, I'm going to vote for Trump. You're not going to be happy. You're going to protest about it, but you're going to vote for him. And then maybe others will not. And maybe those others are kind of going to set themselves apart for a while, like Josie Wales up in the mountains, refusing to be reconstructed. And maybe those who voted for Trump will be glad that Josie Wales is out there. You know, glad that you're out there. Glad that a bunch of people stayed out in the woods and kept the pro-life fires going. We may actually need their fires sooner than we think, right? Because just because Donald Trump gets in does not mean this is over. The Great Reset crowd is still going to be active. Then the New World Order crowd, the guys that are running the Vatican, they're going to still be at it, right? All this evil stuff is still going to happen. Even when Donald Trump was in office, what happened? We got locked down. We got locked out of our churches. He was hiding in the White House basement at one night. Remember that? They're burning the church and knocking over Secret Service guys and pushing the fence over at the White House. And what was Donald Trump's recourse? He didn't have one. He went and hid in the basement. So we are living to see the power of the executive office disappearing. The president himself does not have all the power in the world. We don't know what's going to happen if Donald Trump gets in. Is he going to have more power than he had last time? I don't know. Last time he warp speeded us, right? And he locked down the world. He couldn't stop them. That's the evil that we're up against. So that's what I meant last time. This is not over. No matter what happens in October. And what we need God and we need each other. So don't let whatever happens with this political season or cycle, don't let it blow you apart from your family and friends who understand the big picture and disagree over whether or not you can vote for this man, right? Because I doubt very many of you in this audience are having a debate over whether you should vote for Cammie or Donald Trump, right? That's not your problem. That's not your dilemma. Your dilemma with your friends and your family is, can I vote for Trump still after this compromise? You know what that means? You guys are on the right side. You're on the good side. You're asking the right questions, and there's a lot of hope left for you and for all of us who are having this discussion right now. You know, even if we end up disagreeing with each other, we are going to need each other on the other side.
All right, Ivan Pear says the GOP is twisting in the wind with their effort to prove that they are not the lesser of two evils. Donald Trump may think that he can come up with the perfect number of babies that need to be sacrificed. Do you think at the rate that number has grown in just the recent past, that by November, Donald Trump and the GOP will have far outstripped the Democrats in their level of evil?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. I don't know, but I agree with them on the point that one party is going to kill millions, and then the other party is going to kill a few million less. Is extremely problematic to plug in Aquinas on that, lesser of two evils. He doesn't even use the term lesser of two evils. This was a political term that happened during the Cold War, where they started talking about, or you know, right, especially when the United States was getting ready to ally itself with Stalin and the Soviet Union. That was the lesser of two evils than the Nazis in National Socialism. So it was a political term that it got started. Thomas Aquinas didn't actually say it. He's in 13th century Sicily. He's using the term evil in the sense of an ill fortune, something that's unfortunate that befalls you, a sickness or a persecution. So, for example, if you're in a city that's under siege, and you have two options. One evil is to face this invading force that you're outnumbered by and die fighting. The other kind of evil is to abandon your city, take off out the back of the city, and then live to fight another day. If you're cornered, you don't have that option. You have to stay and fight. So that's the kind of, you don't have to choose the evil of dying for your city. You can actually take the recourse as a father of a family and leave, you know. So this whole idea of lesser of two evils is really difficult, and you have to decide what it is that you believe, or who are you going to let decide or determine what is evil and what isn't evil. And I think that's the biggest problem with that. How does this apply to voting? And to tell you the truth, I don't actually think that it does when you have these larger considerations for what is evil. Like, for example, apostasy is more evil as a sin against God than even abortion.
All right, well, you might have just addressed this, but Rachel McMahon writes, Father Ripperger says we have an obligation to vote the lesser of two evils, so why doesn't this settle it once and for all?
I don't want to name names here because everybody has got concerns, and they're very legitimate, and they're state in life and their positions. But I would say there's a priest on the internet that everyone's heard of. He's a very good priest. He did a sermon recently in which he took the exact opposite position of Father Ripperger. As again, I don't want to name his name. If you recognize his voice, fine. I'm sure he's not hiding from what he said. But it helps me to answer this question quickly. different priests have different good priests, very good priests, have different opinions. So I'll just play maybe a few minutes, Walter. We'll just throw up on the screen, or yeah, I guess it's just an audio. What this good priest says that is in disagreement, I should say, with Father Chad Ripperger.
Because as Father Ripperger pointed out, right now this election is going to determine whether we become communist or whether we do not. And yet at the same time, if we're going to try and say, well, in order to keep from becoming communist, it's okay to kill babies, that's not okay either. We have to vote according to our conscience. And our conscience must be well formed. And it must be voting according to the truth, according to our faith. That's where this becomes so difficult, because of the circumstances in which we find ourselves right now, and it's going to be real easy to try and compromise. Jesus didn't compromise. St. John the Baptist didn't compromise. He lost his head because he wouldn't compromise. The truth is the truth. And we need to be clear about that. These are hard things, especially right now. But it gives us now, we're less than 2 months away, an opportunity to think and to pray and to do some research. Look at the issues, focus on the issues. Don't get caught up, like I said, in all the emotional stuff, because that's what the media wants you to do. Look at the truth, look at the policies, look at the issues. And when you go to vote, show no partiality as you adhere to your faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ. Bring Jesus with you into the voting booth and vote according to your faith.
Okay, so Teresa Pierce asks, I understand the conscience issue, and I wish Trump would not have nixed the pro-life plank from his platform. But I don't understand why we can't just vote for him and then continue to be pro-life in our hearts and try to change the culture that way. Why do I need to worry that my vote is an endorsement of everything about Trump's campaign?
Kamala Harris has to know that no one's having any serious difficulty getting abortion in this country. We have never had more efficient contraception devices and medications in the history of humanity than we have right now. Avoiding pregnancy, in other words, it doesn't really actually seem to be the big concern here. So what is the big concern? The big concern seems to be spilling of blood. The big concern seems to be some sort of paying homage to Moloch, spilling the blood of the unborn, as a way of winning the favor of some evil entity. That's the way it seems to me. I can't really figure out anything else, right? And if you think back to in the old days under the pagan Roman Empire, where Christians were required to do a little pinch of incense and say that Caesar is Lord, right? They had to prove that Caesar is Lord. Just did a little pinch of incense to the pagan god, to Caesar, right? And Christians died rather than do that. Well, it seems to me what they want us to do, Christians living today, that little pinch of incense has become just a bit of blood. Just a little bit of blood. You know, we just have to have the blood of the unborn on our hands, right? And that's my big concern with any kind of compromise here. It's like after all of this, after years and years and years of fighting, we're being forced by the Republican Party now, which is full of rhinos, you know this, which is responsible for the bloodiest wars all around the world too. They've got their problems, despite the fact that socially they've been pretty good thanks to the social conservatives in that party at the base. But all of a sudden that party is pushing us to join in and say, okay, but just a little bit of blood are we going to spill. Not a lot. We're just going to kill a few babies, many, many fewer babies than the other guys, right? And that in that moment, that's where Satan wins. That's where we lose. That's where they scream and rejoice in hell. They got everybody on board now with this satanic practice of spilling the blood of unborn babies in your face to Almighty God, who is the author of life. He is the author of life. We're telling him exactly where he can go to hell. We want nothing. We will say who comes into this world and who doesn't, and we will spill the blood for the power to be like gods, right? That's what's going on. The forces of hell want blood on our hands, and as I said last time, I'm just too old and too ornery to become a pro-abort, even semi-pro-abort guy at this stage of my life. I will absolutely not do it, which is why I'm asking you, Teresa, to join me in shouting from the housetops that this compromise on life and on marriage and on family, the nucleus of society that's going on right now in the Republican Party, that it stops dead in its tracks right now.
Danny Wiseman wants to know, hey, don't you get it? We're not voting for a pope. If you want Trump to be more Catholic than the Pope, you're delusional. I guess the question is, don't you get it?
Yeah, well, we're running late on time, and obviously that somebody thought that got that out there on the internet. They think it's clever. We're not voting for a pope. No, nobody.
They think they came up with it.
We're not cardinals either. So that no Catholics don't vote for a pope. That's the idea. That's the cardinals that do that in the Sistine Chapels. It doesn't even make sense. It's a bad analogy. It's silly. Of course we don't, but we also have to. Concern ourselves with the common good. It's the obligation of Donald Trump. That's why I'm not a huge fan. I know people get mad at me, but I'm not a huge fan of this. Send it down back to the states, a la Pontius Pilate. Send Jesus down back to your king to be judged, right? I'm not a big fan of it because I think it is the first obligation of a ruler, of the prince, to be concerned about all the people he hopes to rule and to lead. And if he doesn't even think that millions of them have a basic right to life, it seems, as Dr. Cirilla said recently, it seems that disqualifies him from the office. So that's what we're talking about here. In 2016, we voted for a guy we were pretty sure was not exactly a daily communicant on any level. He was twice divorced. That's the other thing. When you think about the stuff that Donald Trump disagrees with us on, that person who just gave us that little sarcastic comment, really kind of should be ashamed of himself. Because on all the huge issues that no one's even talking about, like 7 sacraments, like the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, like the indissolubility of marriage and all of these things, Donald Trump has nothing to do with me. He has absolutely, we don't overlap at all on all the things that I believe I need to die rather than deny, the sacraments and the dogmas of our faith. So the idea that we're waiting for the perfect little pope to come along, that's just a sarcastic, smarmy little troll comment. It's not serious because we already proved in 2016 we would vote for Donald Trump. And why did we vote for Donald Trump? Because as we all said at the time, at least he was giving lip service to the good guys, to the godly, to the pro-life folks in this country, pro-God people in this country. And that was enough for us to take a chance and see what happened. And good things did happen from 2016 there for a few years. So yeah, no, we're not voting for a pope. No, that's funny, but we're not doing that. We are trying to find a leader who will protect the common good and who will respect the right of millions of our countrymen to be born.